the guy's got vision though. Like for him to say, "Take this camera, follow me around everywhere." Do you know what I mean? Like he could foresee everything that was gonna happen.
And it's not like the guy that Cody was like doing nothing. He was an established person as well. Do you know what I mean?
Comedian,
Yeah.
It's like watching The Last Dance now. You realise they were probably on the same wavelength. Follow us with this camera for this last year.
Yeah.
Because like thinking in 20 years we're gonna release it and it's gonna be, sick. Like
Having the foresight to do that. But even with them, like obviously MJ was super established, innit? He's the behind, so that makes sense. But Kanye was nobody. He was in, like, you see it in the, he was just in the shadows. Do you know what I mean? Sick as an artist. But speaking of artists, it's probably a good segue, bruv. Like, would you say Kanye inspires, or someone like Kanye was inspire you in terms of what you kind of do? And if you just tell us what you actually do.
So I do poetry. I'm a poet, spoken word. And definitely in terms of Kanye inspiring in that, just his creativity.
Yeah.
So for me, like I've had an idea that I'm gonna spit like this, I'm gonna rhyme like this in this way. But then seeing how Kanye can just go into different realms and bring his art into one place visually with his videos, with even how he spits and who he's bringing on features. I'm now thinking, okay, I can do more. I can maybe bring an instrumental on. I can bring some visual arts to my poetry, and hopefully I can start the groundwork and do all of that within this year. So yeah, he's a big inspiration.
Did you ever rap as well?
I never rapped, but I just listened to grime hard and rap music hard.
Saying that, question, grime or today's drill? at their peak.
That's bringing up the old thing again.
Just to get a different perspective, innit?
Yeah.
At their peak, what would you say is better?
For me, grime.
Is it? Yeah.
When you got a man spitting with flows, with rhymes, and like, think about drill, man. I call it the ABC flow, innit? It's like, run a man down, shank him, innit? For me, that don't do me, man. I wanna hear wordplay.
Lyrical content.
And yeah, man, content. You get that from grime. Gets next level. Chip, next level. Wretch.
Did you go and see Gets when he was here? Yeah, I was in there.
That was life changing for me.
Yeah. It's something else.
It was around the time I was starting my first poetry gig.
Yeah.
And just seeing his energy, I was like, I like that energy. Like, there's moments when I can tap into that as a poet. Obviously, there's going to be other times you need to be a bit more calm, but sometimes you need to...
The energy in that.
Yeah, and his wordplay is...
So, all right, as an actual poet, this is probably the last question, like, from an instant freestyle, but as an actual poet, looking at the rappers, do you see them as your counterparts in terms of wordplay and how they're delivering, or do you see it as a different art form?
I'd say it's a different art form, but it is greatly inspired by rappers. Okay. Especially the top guys as well. So for me, Chip, Wretch, Gets, Dave, their wordplay, for my style anyway, is all been birthed from that. So like George the Poet as well. Like George's early, he talks about his influences being rappers, So Solid Crew, all the other rappers that they are, and I think my thing's similar to that. So yeah, when I write, when I perform, and then obviously being part of the culture, the stories are similar as well. Just I think the spin is more of a conscious spin in terms of trying to make young people think, or the audience think about their surroundings, their situations, and hopefully thinking turns to taking action or doing something different.
No, that's cold, man. That's cold. Because, like, obviously, it's a time now where I don't want to say, like, it's trendy or it's cool, but, like, it is cool to do poetry, innit? Like, back in, I couldn't do poetry, man. I know I'm a little bit older than you, but I couldn't do poetry and feel like, do you know what I mean? It was all the finger clicking and the sun will shine and do you know what I mean? All of that. So I thought, right,
open the door, close the door. I am so confused.
But obviously, I seen you when you was at the lounge, and man was just transfixed. Obviously, the topic you was talking about was heavy hitting, but it didn't sound preachy. You know what I mean? It felt like it was just you were just chatting with the man. Then that's what to me anyway. You know what I mean?
I think that's when you can get the audience, when you can partly share some of your story or share a story and then spin it in a way which makes them think. And again, not being preachy is the most important thing, because, no one wants to feel condemned or judged, and you don't want to come across like that. So yeah, it's a fine balance, but mainly just telling a story, and just usually you've been through the story and you've been through the journey. So when you're coming out, you're not talking from a place of judgment. It's a place of experience, and you just want to share it.
And do you have any poets that you've taken inspiration from, or is it mainly like the grime spitters?
George the Poet, big one. Black Ice is over in America, serious. Shihan is another American one. I don't know if you guys have heard of Def Poetry Jam.
Def Poetry Jam.
Yeah. So in America, they do some, I don't think it's still going on now, but around 07, 08, when I started listening to it, there were some serious poets in there.
Right down your street, innit?
Bruv, DMX was on that.
DMX was on it. Kanye
I think Common was on that as well.
Yeah,
Couple that was
serious.
hard back in the day.
Yeah.
But it shows you that's where like the lines can blur, because I was watching the Kanye documentary, and I think he was on Def Poetry Jam. He was on there, and that's where he was doing All Falls Down. And then DMX has done a few bars that he actually done, like started spitting on music afterwards as well. So with your style, do you have a style that can translate into music in terms of rhyming? Because I know poetry doesn't always have to rhyme, does it?
You know, it's funny you say that, but you can always tell when a rapper is trying to do a poem, become a poem. So when I listen to Kanye on that and DMX, I'm like, this sounds like a track that you've taken the beat off and slowed it down. Whereas, let's say my type of poetry, you can rhyme and play with words, but at certain points, you might stop that rhythmic flow and change it up and just switch it. So you can be versatile with it.
Yeah, that's true. I think with the X one, you can tell from like the cadence. Or he's probably spat on the track already, and then he's hitting pockets. So it's like, I know what you're doing here, sort of thing.
A good example is Jay Ivy. So Jay Ivy is the spoken word poet who's on Never Let You Down to Jay-Z and Kanye West track. You could tell he's the spoken word poet, when you listen to that. But he's really good. I just did some research on him, and he's got a few albums out, so it's going to be interesting to hear what he's like. But
similar to Jill Scott Heron as well. Like he doesn't really like go into pockets. He's just, do you know what I mean?
I mean, Jill Scott Heron is amazing. For me, he's up there. When we talk about artists, he's right up there.
I can't even forget the old school poets like Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, serious poets as well, which again inspire me. And I take a little bit off them. And then you know what? There's a Manchester scene of poets here, which I can't even lie, are amazing. I got a big amount. Young Identity. I don't know if you heard of him, but
so that's Reese's.
Reese Williams. And I've done a lot of things with them. I've invited them to my poetry place. They've invited me, but they have some serious poets that have been repping the flag for Manchester. Isaiah Hall, Saf, like top tier poets, man. And they've travelled the world, Europe, performing, and they're just serious guys.
And they're just concentrated in poetry. They've not kind of dabbled.
Now that, you know what, a couple of them right now are dabbling out into doing music. Like Saf, he's starting to rap a bit. Isaiah, I went to an event Isaiah did where he touched on poetry and he did rapping as well. But these guys just creatives. They can do anything. They can be carpenters and
to make it work, innit?
They make it work, innit?
I like their idea, not necessarily keeping them separate, but building the sort of genre of spoken word. I like that, and creating its own scene. And although it might be under the same cultural umbrella, but having its own sort of lane, I like that idea.
100%. That's I feel like my thing is poetry. It's going to be the spoken word thing, and I just want it. Like I keep telling close people, I want it to be like on the mainstream. I want it to be, the way music is, the way rap is. I want to, and it's been bubbling up. You can feel it, just bubbling up. Like you say, back in the day, you wouldn't have.
That's what I was going to say.
Whereas now, it's like everyone's on it. Everyone's on it, innit? And just getting it out there, doing so many events and linking up with different poets in Manchester and different organisations. Like now, I'm seeing about 5, 6, 7, 8 different organisations doing poetry, and there's all this like crossing over, going into supporting each other's events. Like I was performing at one called Saying, which is a really good one in Hume, and the vibe was just sick as well. And I was able to share my event, which is coming up in, called the Poetry Place.
Get that plug in, bro.
Yeah.
Tell us
about your event, man.
So I started this event called Poetry Place.
Yeah.
It was just for my birthday at first. It was just supposed to be, I wanted to share spoken word, get some of my friends who are poets. And that went off really well. I did that at Lock 91. And people were like, we want another one, So I did another one the next month. And then I'm doing another one this Friday, March the 4th at Armour Store. You can get your tickets by going onto the Poetry Place Instagram and buying your tickets on there. I wouldn't say try buy it at the door because it probably will be full by then.
Sold out,
fam. It's done.
Sold out.
So yeah, Poetry Place. And hopefully we can I want to get it more frequently, and if not every month, every 2 months.
Build a scene. Is it yourself, or is it a collection of poets?
Collection of poets.
Okay,
so
nice.
for the last year or two, I've been doing my thing and kind of got a little following. So and I know poets from different areas, and people are hitting me up. Oh, I want to, is there a slot for me in an open mic? So giving opportunities for new poets as well as the already established ones in Manchester. But yeah, it's gonna be a great night, and obviously it's at Armour Store, which is already has a great following in the community. It's a health store.
Shout out Raf, man.
Yeah,
He's
shout
doing
out
big
Raf.
things.
Yeah, man, giving me the space and the opportunity to do that. And yes, it should be a blessed night. You, man, can roll through as well.
What, open mic? What are you saying, Slav?
Bruv, you're the rapper, bruv. You're the rapper.
I'm retired, bro. What are you saying, Rich?
Dust it
Open
up,
mic.
man.
There's a mic there.
There's a mic there. Bruv, I'm taking the mic for you, bro. We're taking this mic there.
I'm
But yeah,
retired, bro.
what I want to say though is like, I know I kind of touched on it, like obviously it's being cool now to do poetry and there's people like yourself doing it, but what actually made you get into it? Like, well, obviously, because you said at the time everyone was doing grime, I was doing grime. I was obviously producing at the time, I wasn't spitting, but
you know what's
there
mad?
weren't that people doing it, you know what I mean?
Like, I was thinking about this the other day because I did an interview about, someone wanted to do an interview about kind of like my story. And sometimes you forget about the journey that you go through, especially as a child, because like trauma makes you forget stuff. I remember always being inspired by like The Rock and Muhammad Ali, how their man would speak to a crowd. And just the way their man was just, The Rock.
Captivate the crowd.
Captivate.
You smell all that thing.
I'm like, these man have got the crowd in the palm of his hands through words.
I didn't even think of it like that. That's sick.
How? I don't.
Because they're public speakers, isn't it?
Yo,
That's what it is.
they're orators, innit? And I was like, and then I've always had, like, people know me as like the speech guy. In moments, I'd be like,
Speech. Yeah.
I could recite the whole of 300 just because Leonidas has so many bare moments of speeches.
The whole movie.
The whole thing.
The whole.
I can tell you the whole thing from start to end, and then moments, and being inspired by that. And I remember there was one significant moment for me, being in school in my English class and messing up, like just being bad in it. My teacher kept me behind and he went, Gabriel, why are you messing about in English? And I was about 11, 12. He went, you've got an 18-year-old reading average. Your reading average is like for an 18-year-old at 12. I was like, what's that? He went, like, you're writing and reading as an 18-year-old and you're 12. And I didn't even know that. And I was like, okay, sick. And then I'd just be writing stories every now and then. And then I always grew up in church. Yeah. And I remember my youth pastor was like, whatever gift you got, use it for God. So man would just write poems and then perform it at church at our youth event.
So you had the experience from what day? Just obviously being in front of an audience.
Yeah, I won't even lie. That was those were the foundations.
Yeah.
Like,
Are you around if you grew up in church as well? Like, you talk about orators, pastors.
preacher, all of them things. Yeah. Like,
once they get going, Have you start feeling
Jesus is cooking.
I can't even lie. Now you say that. Yeah, church, like, in church every week you're hearing pastors preach that will, and obviously the word of God for me as well, being someone who believes in God, that's potent, innit? And I try and use my experiences of God in my poetry. Say I hear people say, oh, you made me cry, that poem, and I'm like, okay. Like, this year has been so funny, or last year rather. That last year was a like real testament. Like, I'm Griot Gabriel, I'm a poet, and don't doubt yourself, because I'd always doubt my pen. Like, it's all right. But then like last year, doing so many events, people come up to me and they show me real love, and I'm like, okay, this is a new chapter I'm opening, and I'm gonna ride it out.
Yeah.
What's your background?
In what sense?
Like in terms of your heritage?
Yeah, Nigeria.
Oh, Nigeria. Okay. So it was an African church you were going to. Yeah.
Pentecostal.
And all that.
In the name of Jesus.
You're not telling me. Them ones there. Yeah, man. Like, the joke thing is, we laugh, but, you know, the African culture in church as well can have its negatives. Yeah. So I had my son when I was 21 in church while being a youth leader, innit?
The juxtaposition on that one, innit? Hey, are you having a youth?
All them ones there, yeah.
Yeah.
And
the shock on his face.
I want to reaction. I want for you to tell me their reaction. Tell me their reaction.
Like, it wasn't the best, yo. And looking back, it was not supportive at all. It was damaging, actually. He was like calling me up in front and like praying for me. And like, it's one of them prayers. It's not like you're forgiven. It's like, you will never do this again. And Jesus, you will never.
I rebuke the spirit of this and all of that, innit?
Them ones. And I got my support, actually, my spiritual support from the youth project that I was part of at the time, M13. And it's a Christian organization. And they were just, you know, bare loving, bare redemptive. And it was like, okay, you know, you mess up, but you know what? You pick yourself up and you just keep on striving. Like, you know, there's a verse that says, a righteous man shall fall 7 times and he shall rise again. And all of that was real inspiring for me. And kind of left that church. But the writing was still happening in bits and bobs. And then I think, you know, life, being a parent, working, I was in and out of poetry at that time. And then when COVID come, it's that you had more time to write, had more time to think. I think my son was getting older, so he became, and he's an only son, so he needed less, not less support in a sense, but as he's getting older, he's more dependent. That's as well giving me more free time. Started writing, and then COVID, and then I think from COVID it was just boom, like. Okay, bro.
That's amazing, because this, you know, you hear about, I don't know, wasted talent, or to sort of refer to religion as well, the parable of the talents. So, you know, the parable of the talents. Yeah.
You know, it's mad. You remind me, like, a friend of mine, someone really close to me told me, you're like a big fish in a small pond. She was like, because I'd been at my youth project, being raised in Hardwick Longside, and working there, been there for about 10 years, almost semi-comfortable there, and just, obviously I have an investment in that community because it's where I grew, but in terms of poetry, I was also, you know, not pushing myself. When she went, you're a big fish in a small pond, and that struck me so hard. I was like, you're actually right, you know.
Push the boundaries.
Man's not looking to be a big fish in a small pond. So it's everything, just pushing, just sharing stuff and making things happen. And just sharing the talents.
Using that analogy to apply to like Manchester, because obviously Manchester is smaller than London, and you're originally from London. Do you ever see do you see yourself taking your talents to London to share your talents and your content? And
global, baby.
I'm coming. You know what? I got a mentality. I'm so competitive. So when I see the guys in London like doing things as well, I'm like, okay, this is what could happen in Manchester. I've been fortunate enough, 14th of February, 2 weeks ago, to perform in London with Kojo's comedy night with Terrell Williams.
Backyard, right?
Backyard, yeah. So with Terrell Lewis as well. I got to shout him out because he gave me the opportunity to perform, and humbly put, I shot it down as well. And that's just opened doors.
Speak your sauce, man. Big up your team. Message I'm confident, but I'm humbly put it around me.
You know what? It's one of those. I just feel like glory to God in it.
Don't boss.
Glory to God in it. Like, So London was a blessing. I've recently been up to London as well to Empower Poetry. Big up Ryan who runs it there. That's the spoken word scene is getting big there as well. So I'm just trying to bridge links as well. And them man are going to come to Manchester and do stuff. And I'll be going there. But global, that's
That's the goal.
That's the mission. I heard this quote that said, "Start with your street, take over your street, take over your neighborhood, take over your city, and take over the world." And I'm trying to move on that flex.
That's cool. If I got tattoos, I'll get that. I don't get tattoos, bro. That's like one of them tattoo scriptures, isn't it?
Just going back to you were saying about influences, is there any of the classics, so the, I guess, traditional poets that you've looked to, or is there?
You know what? I won't even lie. I do myself an injustice and not listening to the old school poets as I should. And the more I'm getting into poetry now, the more I have to take a step back. So for years, I never listened to William Shakespeare. I won't lie, I was a bit naive. I had the idea he's just some old British white poet who, born in the colonial times. And I just skipped past it. But recently, I read one of his sonnets, I think Sonnet 116. And it blew me away.
Really?
Blew me away. And I use one of the lines in one of my poems where he talks about love, what love is. And he says, love, the line I remember is that love bears to the edge of doom. And it's like, when you love someone, you're willing to go to the edge of doom for them. It was just such just a sick illustration that it just put in my head. But yeah, Shakespeare is hard. So, I was like, I still got to take steps, because I started through kind of rap and grime. But if I really want to be like the master of the craft, I got to look at,
It's funny because when I was young, I used to write poetry. So when I was at school, my teachers would choose me to write poetry and perform it in assembly and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it was from, I don't know if you remember this, and it might have been difficult because you're slightly younger, but we had these NIAB anthology books that we used to have. Yeah, and it had poets like Stephen Armitage, Carol Ann Duffy.
What's his name?
Oh, the Irish one as well. I can't remember his name.
Oh my gosh, the man from Birmingham.
Oh,
Benjamin Zephaniah.
I remember that one.
Yeah, so we studied lots of those, and that's what sort of got me in. So it was like the reverse, because I saw like hip hop and rap as something totally different, whilst the crafts were quite similar. But written poetry was just like, it blew me away to see it on paper, and you can see these sort of writing schemes that are happening, and wordplay. It's amazing.
But that's it though, because you made an interesting point before about obviously you started in poetry through the music scene, and obviously now you're kind of researching and going back to obviously the classics and sort of the forefathers for it. But that kind of goes to the point which I was saying before, like it's cool now. So when you're doing poetry, the kids of this generation can see you, relate to you, and then obviously then go back, because obviously, as you're saying, it wasn't cool then to obviously see the man like Shakespeare. You couldn't relate to Shakespeare.
100%.
What's going to be interesting though, I think is going to happen is it's going to take on a world of its own. So that although yes, some might go back and refer to Shakespeare and some of the old traditional sort of poets, I feel like it's starting a sort of new history for them.
You're right.
Because and you are forming those foundations.
I was watching an interview, and they were interviewing Nas, and they were calling him hip hop Shakespeare, and they were comparing some of his wordplay to Shakespeare, and they were like, Nas is using, I forgot what Shakespeare's form of this rhythmic flow, this whatever it was. And I was like, so in 100 years, we'll be looking at Nas as, the hip hop
using
Shakespeare.
the couplets and all of that.
That's so true, you know.
We're creating history in the moment.
Because it's only a matter of time before people like George the Poet and stuff are going to be studied for GCSE. It's only a matter of time.
I think he is,
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, like his finger's studied in uni.
Okay. See,
that reminds me again to I'm going to big myself up. One of my first poems was in front of a lecturer. She taught sociology, and she went, "Can I have your poem? Because I feel like my students we could extrapolate this and learn from it." And I was like, okay. This was early days as well, so I think just bare little moments of
motivation,
those seeds. It's motivation.
That's good. That's hard. That's good.
Speaking of that, I think we might have to hear something, innit? If you don't mind.
Let's drop some bars.
Yeah. Let's go. Okay. So this poem is called "Conversation with My Younger." And it was inspired by a conversation I had with a young person while doing youth work. Mind the gap. So I had a conversation with my younger. And he was telling me why he's trapping, explaining why he plunders, explaining why he's bagging up the weed and crack at his mama's. He stated his reasons for. He told me daddy's not here. And I'm tired of seeing mommy struggle for the things she's pleading for. Poverty's the reason I fear no law. Fuck if I get caught. I can ride a sentence like Ghost in Power, season 4. Now I can understand his frame of mind, how his environment got him thinking he needs to play the underhand game with life, because success to him has only been illustrated in films like Paid in Full, Top Boy, or Rolling with the Nines. They are classic films, but they only tell partly truths, glorifying that kind of life. From my position, it was clear the seeds had been sown and consequently, the weeds had grown. If I could rewind time and speak to the 6-year-old within him, I'd tell him he has the world in the palm of his hands. I'd ask him what he wants to achieve, what he wants to be. Tell him he has the power to change the world, he's a king. I'd pull out a reading book and make him read. Because knowledge is power. When you expand your mind is freed. But I'm dealing with a 16-year-old that stands before me and he didn't have those opportunities. An interplay of complex dilemmas all found within such communities. He only had one set of role models. Talking about the goons and the ends, with the food in the bends, trouble. Now he's weighing up the bricks on the scales. I told my younger, you need to weigh up the risk if you fail. Because they say this is a big rich town and we just come from the poorest part. Well, forget an education. The streets will have you thinking to succeed, you need the coldest heart. What angers him is that he sees the inequality that sets him and the rich apart. So if all people are created equal, why didn't his prequel have the intended start? But I ain't the jury. Neither am I Judy, so I'm never gonna judge one. But what if brothers from the ends had options beyond one? See, the only concept of making money we've been taught is working a 9-to-5 for minimum wage. And in the capitalist system, that equates to a working slave, and that don't seem too appealing. If you can sell drugs, you can own a business, same hustle, just different products you're dealing. I told my younger, you could be an author, a teacher, an entrepreneur, a scientist, an engineer. I could list many more, but stop selling yourself short and stop being conformed to the hand we've been dealt with. I once heard this quote, and I felt it. It said, regardless of any system meant to oppress me, God designed me to win. So I said the same to my younger. I know the devil's on your shoulder, but the God within you is greater than him. My younger replies, I hear that, G. I can't leave the hustle or the streets. Its temptation has the sweetest voices. I look him dead in his eye and reply, King, I know you're shaped by your circumstances, but you're liberated by your choices. Thank you.
Bro, some quotables, man.
Would you ever make an album?
I've been thinking about that, you know. I've been thinking about that recently. And I think this year, yeah, man. I'm in a place, I'm in a transition where I spend so much time doing youth work full time. It eats up a lot of my days and it's unsociable hours, like 1 to 9.
Yeah.
Really.
The whole day's gone, isn't it?
You get me? I'm like trying to fit in everything else, gym, being a dad. Like, I'm about to rearrange my whole schedule. My whole life is about to change, so I can have time to, you know, create an album and then do that. So yeah, therefore I think this year I'd love to like release an EP or something and just put it out there for people just to hear.
Wheeling up, man said the weeds grow from the seeds that you sow.
you know I'm never again. I'm gonna gas myself.
I gas the thing, man.
Gas the man.
I read that like 2017, and my pen game is just 10 times better than that. I keep saying
practice makes perfect.
Yeah, man. Every new poem I write is gonna be better than the last. I wrote one last night about the war in Iraq. Ukraine.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I'm like, yeah, this is. Yeah, I'm gonna release this. I'm gonna release this, and you know, it's about talking about what's pertinent at the times as well, isn't it? And I think I'm trying to make sure I'm responsive as well to what's going on and putting my own spin on stuff, my understanding, as well as, you know, things from back in the day as well, whether it's history, as a ancient African civilizations, which I talk about, and the history of griots and poets were used in ancient African civilizations to tell stories and through oral traditions, all of that. And I guess, everything that is within me, I'm just trying to share out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Will the Ukraine one be ready for Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it won't be, I hate reading off the phone, innit?
Yeah, man wants to get it memorized, bro.
Yeah.
You're from the old school. No, that's why I don't like drill, bro. No. But yeah, you got to get the bars memorized before you go on.
I won't lie. I might have to bring the phone out because it's so close. I usually give me 2-3 weeks and I'll memorize it, and then you know, you want to connect with the word, so when you deliver it, there's emotion behind that delivery, innit? But we'll see. You'll hear it anyway, whether it's off the phone or memorize, you'll hear it.
So the performance element of spoken words, how do you practice that? How do you improve on that?
Yeah, man. That's
mirror or what?
Mirror. I won't even lie.
Seriously?
In my car, that's when I'm the most just free, and I'm working on getting that freedom by myself on stage, because when you're on stage, it's like I haven't mastered the performance side yet. I'm like, you get nervous. Maybe I'm not delivering certain words as powerful as I can. And I'm trying to link up with other creatives who are like actors as well and who are more established.
Nah, but boy, you have to cash this because you had the audience in the palm of your hand at the lounge, bruv. I was at the back and I could hear every word and pins were dropping.
Bruv, for real. Like, you did not need to include any extra frills. It was like we were watching, listening. We were all in tune, bro.
Your name, that's what I remember.
You didn't have to do anything extra. But on the performance, do you follow battle rap?
Yes.
You are
yes. Like Nova, them old school guys. As in, what's his name? The guy in Nick Cannon's Wild and Out, Charlie Clips. Hitman Holler.
That's what I'm gonna say, because when it comes to performance, Hitman Holler, Loaded Lux, those are the two guys. Those are the two guys.
You got Arsenal.
Arsenal as well, yes. Arsenal. When it comes to pure performance, like, they've got you encapsulated. Like, you are there, you are watching them. Do you know what I mean?
It's been a while since I watched that, but now you said that, I'm gonna follow up on that, because them, man, they'll be like,
exactly,
You can't touch me over there, you're mad. It's a problem. It's a problem.
So I've always wondered, like, the performance element, like, how do they practice? How do they, like, get that all in tune? You saying mirror, and it makes sense. It's a whole routine, isn't it?
Do you practice in front of your man then?
You know who helps me? My sister.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, my sister. I'm like, yo, Mary, listen to this and like give me your honest opinion. And she'll tell me how it is. Sometimes I'll perform in front of my young people as well. I'm like, what do you guys think of this? But
Man says Gabriel, Mary, you came from the church. You came from the church.
Let me tell you something. My other brother, Michael. Oh, wow. Another Archangel. My other brother, Emmanuel.
Oh, Jesus.
It's all over.
Praise the Lord.
Wow. You were speaking exactly what I was about to say, bro. Sister Mary and brother Gabriel.
That's what they'll be calling us when I'm old. Oh, brother Gabriel. My thing, Sister Mary. Yeah, man.
Sister Mary. I was going to just say, in regards to some spoken word poets that I've seen, years ago, just listening to interviews, and they were talking about just watching speeches as well. So watching how people connect, like Malcolm X. Malcolm X, a great one that they use, not too favourable for people, but it's Donald Trump as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And
what did they say about him?
So it's his precise wording and how his wording, the way he formulated his speeches or whoever wrote them, but his intonation and the bits that he really wanted you to take away with him. So it's simple hand gestures. There was a hand gesture which I can't remember what it is.
China.
Yeah. Well, no, that's it.
China.
So it's that. But you remember that for China, but he did that a lot. And those, I think it is this, and this is what you took away. So when he was doing that, you made a connection with that piece of his speech, and you took that piece of his speech away. You know, and then people use it to talk about how then he could manipulate you doing that as well. You know,
that's so interesting. Like, for me, that's like about learning, being able to learn from everyone and everything, even people you don't like, innit? Like Donald Trump, because, when you said that, my version was like, right,
I'm back up and ready, innit?
what can you learn from him? But like to have that mentality is a wisdom, innit?
It's looking at things objectively, innit?
It's like they're saying, it's the bad man is the good man's teacher, you know, because that's the saying, and it is you learn from everybody you encounter, everything you see, you know, even
learn from the mistakes, innit?
yeah,
Not
people
to do
doing
it.
the complete opposite to what you believe. There's something in it, you know. So yeah, they're great orators.
Just a thought. I know obviously you spoke about trying to link it in when you spoke about it was kind of shone on you when you had obviously your son earlier now, and obviously it was deemed a mistake. But like, how did your parents take, or how did they take you obviously doing poetry? Like, I can imagine obviously come from the African background and telling your parents, Mum, what do you want to be an older? And they were points. You know what I mean? How did they take that?
You know what's funny? Like I'm still not at that place where being a youth worker, she sees me youth work in the community. She's proud of that. She's like, oh, that's my son. M 13. I'm like, mom, it's 13, not 13. But like, this poetry is new in it, so she's still seeing me as the youth worker.
Yeah.
Whereas this time next year.
So you need to bring it to a show, bro.
Yeah, you know what? For real, that's. I'm bringing her to this one.
Yeah,
like,
bring it to a show, man.
I'm bringing her to this
ends,
one.
innit?
I want her to see. Like, okay, this is new Gabriel. This isn't, youth worker Gabriel. This is speaking with confidence, authority, and purpose, innit? And that's, you know what? I like that. That's
It'll be a watershed moment as well, I think, for her as well, because I looking at Lil Sims and her acceptance speech, and she brought her mum up, and you can see how much it meant to her mum. But my mind went to, I wonder at what moment did it become real for the mum?
Exactly,
This is who you are. This is what you do. You know, that this is really you. So that would be amazing. There's
part of me is like, she's probably gonna come on stage like Friday. I know my mom. And start giving stories. I know.
She'll say a prayer before you start, bro. That's what she'll do, man.
That's it.
Standing, bro. No messing, bro.
Hold hands.
You performed before?
No, you say no.
In church, back in the day, church, like 18, but obviously who I am now is different.
That'd be amazing, though. Can you imagine that organic moment, though? So that that organic moment of her joy or whatever it is, seeing you, that'd be amazing. Even if she does her own speech.
Part of me is like, make room for that, innit? Because I think it gonna bring healing for her as well, like bring joy. So man, I'll just humble myself. I'm like, mum, run the show, innit? Do your thing, innit? Why not, innit? Because when the Armour store is actually across the road from Apollo.
Yeah, literally.
And a part of me's been like, I want to get into Apollo one day, yo. Yeah. I want to sell out Apollo.
Vision, bro.
You got on the vision board?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's on camera now, innit? So you said it, bro.
We're documenting, bro. We're not going to follow you around every day. Yeah. But we've got...
I won't lie. I've got there's a little thing going on where it's not Apollo, but it's the next big thing. And that opportunity this year will come into fruition by God's grace. And then obviously when that's done, then that's I'm one step closer to the.
It's a big thing. I was going to say what you're doing. Sorry, just based on what you said and your mum is. You're making a cultural change as well, aren't you? You're opening up people's thoughts to what they can be, you know, coming from the church or coming from a Nigerian community. You are completely changing. I was reading, what's his name? JME and their whole family. The mum's written a book. Adenuka. She's written a book about it. And just within that, how they all follow that journey. But it took for one of them to, it was mainly her to say, you know, you can be more, you can be something different, that it isn't this designated pathway, you know, and that's what you're doing, you know, opening.
I mean, I had the fortunate opportunity to be with a youth project that invested so much kind of time in me, and they gave me so many opportunities to volunteer, to do football projects, to meet the Archbishop of Manchester, to meet the Mayor of Manchester. And all those opportunities at a time when you're 17, 18 and you're like semi in the roads and you don't know what to do. And it's like, okay, there's a whole world out there which, you know, you don't have to always watch your shoulders and watch your back.
Sleep well at night.
You get me? And once I got in there, that's exactly what I want to do for the young people I work with now, just helping them think critically about life decisions they make and opportunities and giving them new experiences, because we learn from experience. And
100%.
even if it's just going out to a residential in the Lake District and seeing nature and seeing rocks and like, right, okay.
Rather than blocks. Yeah, I mean,
Rocks rather than blocks. Okay,
supporting that, man.
Are you auditioning? Hey, are you auditioning? Hey, take
I'm there, blood.
Open mic.
I'm behind the camera.
So but yeah, I feel like I've spent enough time doing that on the roads, like literally. As a detached youth worker, you're walking around the community, doing youth projects, and I've invested so much time into that. I'm hoping now, like, this poetry journey is now me influencing on a bigger scale almost, and letting young people see, right, you know, you could be big.
There's another option, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's still influence, still inspiring, just on a bigger scale. And again, like, the dreams are big. Let's make poetry mainstream. I want it to be mainstream. So like, I want to be like Isaiah Hull. I want to be like Saf. I want to be like Gabriel. I want to be like Melissa Dean. All these people. Like, let's have names of, you know, urban, cultured poets all around the UK.
That's like the other one. That girl, she's cold. What's her name?
Miss Yankee.
No, she's from London. Simply Shayo. Oh my God. Bruv, you did with the fur coat.
Levels.
The Nigerian girl with the fur coat.
Maybe if I see her.
I'll have to do a fact check, bruv. Let me do the fact check. I'll send my phone. Yeah, bruv, she's cold.
It's hard.
We'll show you out. I've sent it to you.
Oh, okay. So I would have. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you,
Skin out your pom pom.
what inspires you to write? Because when I used to spit back in the day,
Bars. But we still spit now, man. Don't shout rubbish, man.
when I used to spit the bars back in the day, it was long journeys. It was like train rides, like up and down the country. Because I went to uni up north, and I'm from London, innit? So it was long train rides or long car rides, long car journeys. And like you were saying about like the rocks and the trees or whatever, there was something about the long journeys, something about just seeing the world go past. It's like words were coming into my mind. It was like, let me get this out, let me get it out. So what does that for you?
Yeah. I was reading this book. It's called The Artist's Way by a woman called Julia Cameron. Amazing book. It's about how creatives, when they lose their creativity, how to get it back. And she talks about kind of you having a tank that you need to refill with things, with experiences, with fun stuff, and it feeds the inner child in you. So when you're talking about seeing rocks and seeing things, that was feeding that tank for you, which then enables you to be creative. And I think for me, a lot of my early stuff was growing up in Hardwick and seeing how certain things affected young people. But I was blessed to be able to be educated in a project in an environment where we look critically at like social issues, bigger stuff. So like policies and laws which trickle down and affect communities like Hardwick, like Peckham, like Brixton. And seeing how problems in urban communities is viewed as a personal problem used to piss me off. Like, you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps as if people's failures was because of them, but they never looked at the fact it was a social issue, like what was going on, which was making it hard for people not to get out. And a lot of my stuff, like the poem I just said, is about critiquing the environment, but also realizing liberation can only come from ourselves, innit? Only we can liberate ourselves. The power is in our hands to make a difference and to change and not to fall for the traps. So a lot of it was out of kind of like an anger as well. And growing up as kind of like a black British boy, you're seeing racism, you're seeing injustice, and a lot of it was anger. And I think you can be creative out of anger, but it's not flourishing. I think creativity has to also come from a place of joy and happiness for it to be more powerful and long-lasting as well, because you kind of burn up if you just write out of anger. And I think getting closer to God has given me a great sense of hope for about life, about relationships, and also looking back and dealing with trauma. You realise how much trauma influences your everyday thinking, and working through all of that gives you a new sense of hope. So I definitely write from a place of hope. Practically, what does that is seeing other artists perform and seeing their genius and realizing a part of their genius, creativity, is in everyone. And you just got to untap it. It's in everyone. You just got to unlock it, whatever it might be. I've been watching Ronaldinho clips.
Jesus Christ. My guy.
Yeah.
Best.
Top 5.
Oh no, the best.
Top 1. Yeah, the best. The best.
Bro.
The best.
Period. The best.
Let's not talk stats. Let's just talk ability.
The best. Yeah.
Come on.
As a visual
God gifted
art,
talent.
visual art.
Yeah, as a
Ability. You're gonna say Maradona?
Ahead of R9.
Yeah.
Ahead of R9.
He's doing passes with their back.
For things he was doing, like R9 can't do what
Neymar's
Ronaldo.
doing all that stuff.
That's a cheap. It's a cheap imitation. What Neymar's doing.
No, let's not talk. It's Arsenal fans. Arsenal fans.
R9, top 2 ever. I didn't watch Pele. I didn't watch Maradona. My dad
You
told me back then.
didn't watch Ronaldinho?
Yeah, what's Ronaldinho? He's not better than R9 or Messi.
Wow, creatively.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
100%.
That's what I'm talking
We're talking
about.
about art and creativity. We're not talking about goals.
Yeah, even goals, man. If we want to talk about goals.
It's Arsenal. He's better. That's what it is, bro.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, visually.
Like God just went.
It's like
have extra.
And underneath him, all right, not for the skills, but for the way he moved, I have to put Zidane after that, bro. Just for what he was manipulating the ball. I mean, we've not seen it since.
Zidane's sweet, man.
Zidane was just so effortless.
That's what I'm saying.
Gazelle. Someone
it was like
described
water.
him as a gazelle. Just
Have you seen that documentary? I know we're straying, but that documentary where it follows Zidane and it's just music playing.
Yeah.
Bro, you need to watch. It's cold.
Bruv, it's poetry in motion.
Literally, my guy. That's the title, bro. That's the title. Literally,
That's what it was. That's what
there's no what's it called? No one speaking over, no voiceovers. It's just music and him playing. But it goes to it. It's ridiculous.
Bro, like when chest the ball comes down and brings it.
It goes to a crescendo and it comes back. It's ridiculous. I'll send you the link. I'll find the link and I'll send it to you, bro.
Zidane was heavy, man.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, no, that's makes sense.
On that note, bro.
No, just listening to you speak before, and like I'm a big fan of reading, getting people to read and encouraging people to read. And you touched on it before with The Artist's Way, I think. Won't put too much pressure on you, but top sort of 3 books that you've read that really got you. You can go 5 if it makes it easier, because that reaction tells me there might be a bit more than 3. So you can go 5 if you want.
No,
but yeah,
I'll start with the Bible, you know.
Yes.
Can't even lie.
Yeah.
I was reading a chapter of it the other day at Job 38, and it's the most inspiring piece of poetry I've ever read in my life, where God replies to Job and he just hits him with heavy bars. Like Job 38. If anyone wanna see serious poetry from God's mouth, Job 38. The autobiography of Malcolm X, one of my greatest heroes and inspirations. As a youth worker, there was a book by a scholar called Paulo Freire. It's called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And he just talks about dialogue and conversation and how we educate society and people, which has really helped me as a youth worker think in terms of conversation and just how you engage with people.
It shows.
Yeah.
It shows, bro.
Thank you. One of those.
I mean, that's a good 3 there.
Yeah, was that 3?
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
yeah. That was good 3. And the Bible, I mean, that's a great pick. I mean, even if you're not religious, you know, from just the stories in there, and for me, the way it does connect on a very human level, you know, like I brought up the parable of the talents before, and it's something that when I worked in education, we would always base discussions around, you know, and you could take away the religious element, but it's the idea of this talent that you've got, you know, 3 different people. Do you remember it? 3 different people given their talent, and, you know, and this one who's hidden their talent, and it's like, oh, it's still here, but it's unused. You did nothing with it. Yeah. So yeah, the Bible is.
And just hearing people talk about, you hear these motivational speakers, and they say you don't want to be an old man and think and regret not doing something.
Dying with your music still inside you.
All of that.
Yeah.
And I think when I turned 30, it was like a light switch. I was like, right, I'm no longer in my 20s no more. It's like time. And now I'm thinking about, you know, where am I going to be when I'm 60? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this stuff gotta come out of me somehow. Yeah, it's quick, fast. And one of my boys, he's called Shoko. He does music. He's great. He's a really talented guy. He had a lyric where it said, like, I will not die with any bar left in me. And that stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, I'm this is a conveyor belt of, I'm just getting stuff out. And
double entendre.
Yeah, man. So yeah,
how you call that?
Is what it is.
No, that's big, and words to live by. I was going to ask your son, what sort of impact has this had on your son, and has he built a love for sort of spoken word or early stages of poetry?
You know what's funny? So I've gone on a journey from like football was my thing, to then I dabbled in boxing as well, amateur boxing. And at one point I was thinking maybe I could go pro. And Malachi, my son, he jumped on the kickboxing thing, the boxing thing, well, the combat. So his thing is kickboxing. He does it at G Camp in Mossad. But in the last couple of years, I'm hearing him like rapping, and he's like,
sick.
I love Eminem, I love Tupac, and I'm like, oh, go on, son. I'm like, I just play it in the car, innit? I'm trying not to force him, and he's like, is this Tupac changes? I'm like, it's all there. And he's rhyming now. He's getting rhyme. Before he couldn't get it. He's like, I don't know how to write, and I'm like, son, just take your time in it, it'll come to you. And then we have little practice writing sessions where we just, we call it brain drain. We just, in the morning, you just, what's on your mind, you just write it out. Just write it out, and just learning how to take your thoughts and put them on the page. And he does that, and he's developing his writing skills, listening to more rappers, and I'm just like, yeah, you're the next in line, you're 2.0. I'm just...
Do you know what? Because we had a conversation last week, and we was talking about the thin line between encouragement and kind of pushing. Where do you draw the line? Like, obviously, if you can see the talent in your child, do you push full throttle, or do you just let them blossom
You know what? I've as a youth worker, I know my son, there's moments where he's probably greatly irritated by me, because I've never been one to tell him, rarely I'm saying, you're doing this. It's always, I've tried to ask critical questions as I do my young people when I youth work them. So what do you enjoy? What is it you want to do? Or if he does something bad, why did you do that? Let's explore it. What's the emotion behind it? And as a kid, I'm realizing it could actually be quite difficult, because you're asking the kid to
express themselves.
And something like, Dad, man, why'd you asking me questions? I just want to...
I just did it.
Yeah. But I want him to get in this habit, even as now, to think critically about what he does and how he does it. So back onto what you're saying, it's a case of, if I see a talent or a skill, how can I kind of create an environment or an opportunity where he can... develop it and flourish, and try and make it as natural as possible, innit, where he can opt into it. So whether it's, okay, let's go to this poetry event I'm hosting, you can sit front row, it's going to be really, and I'm thinking, I'll get him there on Friday.
Okay.
I just want him to soak up and see, wordsmiths in place.
Yeah. That's a sick way of looking at it.
Bro, that's going to be hard, Imagine watching your dad, having that impact on people. That's
Just as a youth worker, and sometimes I walk around with him in my community, when we're going to the shop, and there's not a day when I'm like, everyone's like, safe good, bro, you're right. I'm like, yeah. Like, how do you know this guy? I'm like, I youth worked him. I was like, and then yesterday was like, you're like some celebrity, you youth work everyone. I'm like, but like seeing his reaction to that, it lets me know, like, okay,
He's observing.
he's observing, innit? And it feels good, innit, when
It's poetry in motion, bro. It's like what we said, isn't it, bro? No, hard, man. That's hard. No, but bro, like I said, we could probably speak for it forever, bro. Like the way, and we need more people like you, especially within this city as well, to obviously articulate themselves the way you do, and obviously push on their talent. But that was, you get me, man, the gap, and like we need the ecosystem, like we keep saying, because obviously London have got a scene, and everyone is invested in the scene, but Manchester, everyone's kind of fragmented. So we're trying to build or trying to be part of a wider ecosystem. So then, like when people come from different cities, they're like, "Right, this is what's going on." So obviously, like you see poetry, then obviously you can shout out someone in the entertainment overall.
And I think so like, as well, it's important that London doesn't become the target.
that we, focus on building Manchester.
Because we forget that music, Manchester's a rich music scene and a rich music history, when you talk about bands, big bands from here. So it is, London isn't the target, it's important.
Yeah, I'm a money man, yo. So I was born in London, but 100. I resonate with everything you said in it, and big shout out for you guys for getting me on here.
Have you got anything more to plug? Like
Socials. So Griot Gabriel, Griot GRIOT_Gabriel.
Sorry. So what does the griot? What does that stand for?
Okay.
You can't let that one slide.
Yeah. So again, in ancient African civilizations, griot were poets, and they would go. That was their way of. They would educate people in society through oral traditions, and they were tasked with remembering a lot of their ancient history, as well as what was going on currently at the time, and they would go from village to village sharing. So, and they were West African poets. So, being from Nigeria, when I found that out, I was like, "Oh, Griot Gabriel." There's a nice, alliteration as well. So, that's it. And the poetry place, which is again for information of the poetry night, _poetry place. I'm shout out M13 Youth Project where I work. Check them out on Instagram. And everyone else that's been supporting and helping. Big up.
So that's the ecosystem.
So that's it.
Money man.
Mind the gap.